Welcome to the market recap presented by Tackle Trading. Get in the game.
Good afternoon, Tackle Traders, and hello, YouTube. This is Frank coming to you with the market recap. It is the 24th of April. It is Wednesday. Hey, Marcelo, great to see you. Good morning to you, Lloyd. Good afternoon to most of us, but good afternoon to you, my good friend. Hope you had a great day or a good night's sleep, I guess, probably a better way to put it. And hi, Adita. Good to see you as always. Hello, Micah. Kind of one of those days in the market where, some big movers on earnings. But for the most part, kind of a hanging out at resistance type of day overall in the market here today. We did see some selling over in the energy sector as it just continues to go back and forth, back and forth. We've got an Exxon and a Chevron coming out with earnings on Friday, so we're going to start to get some stuff going on over there. You actually had Oxy come in and put a better bid than Chevron did for Anadarko here, and Darko's had a good run. People just keep trying to buy it. It keeps going up. So, and hey, Matthias, good to see you, my friend. And hi, Lorena, great to see you as well. So, just kind of for the most part, a flat day if we look at it from a broad perspective. Of course, we are right in the thick of earnings season, as you guys all know. Big names coming out tonight, too. We've got CMG, we've got Facebook, we've got Microsoft, we've got Visa, we've got all sorts of fun stuff coming out after today's close. Didn't really have a chance to dig too much into them one way or the other. I just see CMG beat on earnings, but I didn't get a chance to dig into it. So Microsoft, Facebook, Visa, PayPal, you've got Tesla coming out here as well. And then tomorrow, almost 40 S&P 500 companies are coming out before the open. Comcast, 3M, AbbVie, so plenty of big names as we continue to work through this earnings season, probably around the halfway-ish point. By the time we're next week at this time, we're going to kind of be seeing the end of the earnings season, but we got another good solid week before we get there. So hi, Patricia, great to see you as always here. So it might, Daniel, it might, and I think we're just trying to figure out if we like a breakout or if we at least need a pullback. And I think that's kind of what the market's seeing right now. As we talked about yesterday, you guys have seen on your own, we're just right there at resistance on the Dow and the S&P. And these are areas that, well, they're pretty big levels of resistance, or at least they have been in days gone by. So I think as we kind of work through the end of earnings season, I do think it'll give the market some clarity. And so far, I think earnings have been better than bad. I guess I think more good than bad on the earnings front. Certainly not a rock star earnings season in my mind, at least thus far, but we still have some room to go before it's all said and done. Today was just not going to be that day in the market. We had that nice run yesterday working into that resistance zone on the S&P, and then basically we kind of just hung out, drifted a little bit back and forth, had some selling at the end of the trading day here today. Nothing really too crazy, but a little bit of profit taking towards the end of the day on the S&P 500. When we look at this on the daily chart, I mean, there's really nothing here that wasn't here yesterday, right? We're dealing with that all-time level of resistance. We know the Dow's right there as well. So just an area where we naturally probably going to want to take a little pause here, whether it's a consolidation or a retracement. I mean, with this market, it could break it tomorrow. We all know that. But I think technically we still want to respect this resistance zone. But I mean, how do you not like its chances with the strength that we have seen? I know I'll like it a lot more once we take out those highs, but we're going to need at least one more day. Now we've got lots of earnings coming out, before tomorrow's open, so maybe that can force the issue, Daniel, one way or the other. Probably depends how good or bad they are as a collective unit. So finally, a red candle in the NASDAQ. Certainly nothing to really see here to still align from Maddie and Tim, but we did see a little bit of profit taking here. Microsoft was up off the initial announcement on earnings. I think they had a revenue beat. That's as far as I got there, though. I don't know exactly what the numbers were. Just another, what do you say, type of a day. Finally, hey, maybe, this is the first day of a potential pullback. So for those of us who might be interested in a pullback in tech, in the NASDAQ, it's one day. Let's not get our hopes up too much, but it always has to start with one day, right? Hey, if this wants to pull back into that 9 EMA, into that rising 20 at around 76, it has to start with a red candle, right? I'm not going to hold my breath as strong as it has been. I will look at kind of these old highs to be our first line in the stand as far as support goes, but a little bit of selling over there as well. I think part of it is just like the S&P, we've got the Dow just hanging out right at just below that resistance level, right? And certainly, this has been a pretty significant, price point. We've had a couple of different runs at this zone and of course failed each time fairly spectacularly, at least short term. So again, do I think we're going to do that? Not necessarily, but I get the hesitation from the bullish perspective. I really do. Who wants to buy at resistance? I love to buy a break of resistance, but I never want to buy at resistance. I don't want to buy and have to have it break for me to win. So we did see some interesting movement here on the rut today, though. Was able to take out that resistance zone. Let's sneak in here maybe to an hourly chart here. Went a little consolidation, broke through that, and went to another little consolidation. Now we know of the the 1600. I have it at 1605, as you guys know, kind of the major level of resistance above us. But we did kind of take out this little shorter term swingish level of resistance, closing above it here today. I really don't see any reasons why it can't work towards that 16. I don't love the close. I wish the candle would have not had such a long wick here today, at least from a bullish perspective. Although overall, I'd rather it stays below 16, all things being equal. Stay sideways. Give us a trending NASDAQ and a sideways Russell any day of the week. I'm sure my cash flow condor traders are okay with that as well. So did have a little bit of a pop, nothing really to see. The big resistance is going to be at this, like I said, I have it 1605. I know some people are going to have it right at 16. I need to see the 1605. If we look at this on a weekly, and here's kind of why I have the 1605. We had some old history there. We've had our major pivot point, of course, last year there. So some areas where I think, I think we've got enough history there that for me, in my style at least, I need to see it above 1605 before I'm ready to call it a break. At which point in time, it is a really clean break, potentially, if that does happen. I will like it. That will probably be a hedge the condors area for me. So we'll see if we get there. We've still got some room to run, and it's not broke until it's broke, right? Over in materials, yeah, not much here to see. It did, I'm kind of glad, we had kind of that nice bounce back, and I was hoping for a little bit more of a retracement in the material sector. And so I'm fairly happy that it didn't run up here today. I'm fine with the break. You guys know that break is still there. Right now, we're still kind of in the weird pullback / consolidation phase in the sector. I think major support, nothing has changed. About 56.25 is the major support level, but I'm going to be watching anywhere around this rising 20 to potentially act as that support catalyst if we can just drift a little bit, or if we can consolidate for a few more days as well. Energy just having a hard time at that resistance. Now we talked about it, I think we looked at it maybe Friday or Monday. Of course, we worked right into that 200, had a little doji type day there yesterday. And I think part of it is it's hard to break those moving averages, especially those long-term averages, or at least it can be. We're seeing that happen on the daily chart. Hey, there you go, Scott. Well, hey, I am here to help out. So I've got my own record. It didn't want to let me in very bad either, although it wasn't YouTube. It was my grumpy old computer. So we're still fighting at that weekly 200 as well. And as we talked to, I don't know if it was Friday or Monday, we talked about it at some point. That's just a lot that we have sitting on top of us. And so if we can ever push through that, I expect we're going to have a decent little pop. It's just turning out to be quite the battle. Now we've got some earnings coming up here, as you guys know, Chevron, Exxon, both on Friday. So that may prompt it one way or another. Still staying with the bullish mindset, bullish bias, as long as we're above that rising 50. It's almost, we got some time, but it's almost developing into a pinch, right, between those averages. And that would be really interesting. If it wants to continue to kind of go between this 50 and 200 for the next few weeks, that should really compress the sector. I don't know that that's the way it's going to go, but if it did, when it finally broke, that probably would give it a lot of pop in the short term. So I'm all right with it. 50 kind of is the support level for me. I'm going to use this 200 weekly as the or 200 daily, I'm sorry, as the resistance personally, and going into this next week and a half. If we can ever close above that 200, I think I'm going to really like this sector. I still overall like it, and I feel like there's enough reason to be bullish and enough upside to be bullish to be willing to put up with the schizophrenic or at least not very well behaved nature of the sector right now. It's one of those sectors where you look at it 2 weeks later, it's, you know, it's gone up, but day to day, it's driving you crazy, right? So over in the financials, just a doji day at that resistance level. Again, a pretty significant level of resistance in my mind on the financial sector. Still need to see that nice clean break above that before I get too excited. But a break above that, I will absolutely interpret that as a nice bullish continuation signal. I'm waiting for that to happen. Has not happened yet. It very well may take the market, the S&P and or the Dow breaking through to get through on the financial sector. Still going to prefer the insurance companies and things like that to the banks overall, but that is much more generalized today than maybe I thought it was going to be a couple of weeks ago. Industrials, considering, you know, Boeing kind of blah, just kind of an earnings report that was there. Cat didn't have a great response to earnings. Actually, they did beat earnings, but the market didn't care as Cat really struggled. And when you can consider that, you know, those are some pretty big components of this ETF. Thought it held up pretty nicely here today. Little red candle, not a lot to see. Still firmly expect to work up towards that $80 mark, and as long as we're above 77, I will probably continue to say that. So still really like this area. Still, of course, shying away from the Boeing because of the uncertainty with all of that, but overall I still do like this sector quite a bit. We've got 3M coming out here, big company in this space tomorrow before the open. So we'll see how the earnings impact it, but I still really like its chances, honestly, of getting into that $80 mark. The NASDAQ might have closed a little bit red, but not the technology sector. Little doji at the top, but still just another day, another all-time high, not closing at that high, but hitting yet another all-time high. Microsoft coming out here tonight. We've got plenty to come in the next week and a half within this sector for sure, but just continues to be a juggernaut. I mean, it just continues to go up and up and up. And well, that's why you trade with the trend, right? So trying to guess the top on that would have been immensely frustrating, and would probably, a month from now, we'll probably be saying the same thing, right? It's usually how it goes. Staples continue to put up a heck of a fight. You know, it depends probably on you. I don't think we can say that this is broke resistance yet, but we are still very much knocking on that door. We are holding up very nicely. We saw Coke come out with pretty good earnings here yesterday, had a decent little response. So again, just whether we want to call this a pullback or a consolidation, it might be an ugly pullback on the ETF at least. I think it's more consolidation personally, at a resistance level. Still like it. I like that it's really played some defense up at resistance. Very natural place to take profits in my mind. And while there has certainly been some profit taking for sure, it's kind of met with somebody else saying, hey, I'll take that from you. So it continues to show me a lot of there's a lot of interest. If we can break through this, probably a good little breakout. We should have a little bit more room to run, probably at least into the 58 mark. And probably, I'll probably take it 58 and then 59. 59 is probably the major level of resistance to be looking at, but I'll probably watch 58 too if and when we can finally break through that resistance level. Still no sell signals. I mean, as you can see, most of these things are still above their rising 9 EMAs. So, I mean, if this is the end, there's certainly not a lot of great short-term technical signals suggesting that we should believe that. A little bit of a bounce back day here. Hey, Jimbo, good to see you, my friend. A little bounce back both in the real estate and the utilities. It makes sense to me from a technical point of view. As we've talked before, I'm not really that interested in trading it, but we've talked about this weekly breakout several times before on the utility sector. And basically, until that 57 gives out, I think we just have to be expecting it to be a very strong level of support. Getting down close to it yesterday and Monday, it looks like at least short term, the bulls were saying, yeah, if this breaks, that's kind of a bearish signal, or at least not a bullish one. We better do a little bit of buying. Still looking at this overall as sideways. I just want to let it do whatever it needs to do for the next little while within this 57 to 59 range. Maybe something will develop between here and there. I mean, I could understand somebody, trying to work back to 59. I don't think it's a very pretty chart, and we have, falling averages on the short term, 20 and the 9. We are back above the 50 here today. Not a very trader friendly chart in my mind, unless we're really thinking about it more from a weekly position type perspective. That side of the argument, I'm not going to find myself there very often and on the utility sector, but I certainly, like we talked yesterday, I do get that argument, if nothing else. Healthcare, a little bit of a doji here after a really strong bounce back day yesterday. I think that we're going to get some retracement opportunities here in the sector in the not too terribly distant future. I don't think you could call today confirmation, but I do think we can see that the momentum really slowed down. I'm still looking at this from a bearish retracement perspective. There is no doubt about it. I think I certainly know I'm not alone. I don't know if there's more of me than people who want to buy it or not. I would assume so based on the look at the chart, but I will be looking at this for retracements. Probably need another day to be sold, or at least to take out today's low. I think an aggressive trader can and maybe even will use below today's low as an entry point. Yeah, there's some good opportunities in this space. Maybe we'll take a quick peek before we wrap up and go see what kind of goodies we can find. Over in the discretionary sector, and I'll show you here in just a second, Jimbo. It's just in the Tackle newsletter. You just need to go into the reports on Tackle Trading and into the newsletter, and that is where you will find the sector, the football field where we're on. See if I can say that, where we are on the different sectors. I continue to like the discretionary sector. Not a particularly beautiful candle on this ETF here today. Looking a little bit like a gravestone doji, but that's about the only negative thing you can say about it. Did hit an all-time high today. How bearish can you be if you're hitting all-time highs? As I oftentimes say, probably too much. It continues to be a very strong area, continues to be one of my favorite areas personally from a bullish perspective. Real estate, much like utilities, a little bit of a bounce back day here as well. Not as pretty. I mean, we talked yesterday, I like the utility weekly chart better than the real estate weekly chart, but can't really argue this is a pretty bullish weekly candlestick. If we were to close this, if this were Friday afternoon, and this is what the close looks like, maybe you could talk me into looking to buy into the real estate sector above the weekly high. Now, we still got a couple of days. Who knows what's going to happen in those couple of days, but it's developing into a pretty strong hammer off of support on that weekly time frame. We're able to close back above that 50-period moving average. Still don't love it. I don't like things that have retraced this deep, that have taken out previous swings along the way. If I'm going to look for opportunities, what I'm probably looking for is it to run up, and if it just really works all the way back up to resistance and then through it, just has to do it. This type of chart will have to do it without me. But if we kind of think about Google, it had a very similar situation a few weeks ago where we were kind of arguing. I was with Matt. We kind of argued a little bit. Was this a bullish retracement worth taking? And I was on Matt's side of it. We'd taken out that support level. And so I didn't think it was a very clean retracement, much like Matt. There's some argument about this one. And again, that's, in hindsight, I was definitely wrong. But I'm not very much like the real estate sector. We took out that swing low. So what I'm going to look for, if I'm looking from a buying perspective, is let it work its way up and then start to pull back like we saw back here on Google. And then if and when we take out what turns out to be that swing high, then use that as the methodology to get in. I mean, in hindsight, could have got here too, but probably right here is probably where I would have called it a signal. So from a technical point of view, if I'm looking at real estate, that's kind of what I'm looking for. Let's have a little pullback, put in that higher low, and then take out whatever turns to resistance. I'll probably start to feel a lot better about this sector. But I don't like things that have pulled back this far. I don't like it when they kind of take out their previous swing low, just not showing the strength that I would like it to do so. But I think we do have really good reason to believe that 34.75 is a major level of support. And if that thing breaks, I do think now we can actually start thinking bearish, because, well, what happens if that does break? Well, we run into trouble up here. We don't make that higher low or higher high, right? We start going down tomorrow or 3 days from now, but we make a lower high and then make a lower low, taking out that breakout point. So I think you can start to be thinking about that as a bearish signal if that happens. And I still think the more likely thing is the longer term trend holds, but we'll see where this one goes. Still leaving alone short term, but thinking ahead maybe into next week for potential, whether bull or bear. I could see it developing either way with a little bit of time. And I could also see it just running right back up. It is the real estate sector after all. It's easy to forget how awesome it has been because we've been a little bit on the rocky side these last week and a half, but shouldn't probably be all that surprising if a week from now it's hit a new high either. So with the overall strength. Over in communication services, not much to see here, much like the broad market. Do have the Facebook coming out with earnings, so I would suspect that how Facebook opens tomorrow will have a pretty legitimate impact on how this ETF opens up here tomorrow as well. So a little bit of profit taking, not a lot to see here. Same really story that we were yesterday. Don't really even know where to call resistance. I know we'll have some major, real resistance up at $52, in that range where we've had our all-time high. We've got little things at around 50 potentially. I guess we could, look at this around 50.87 or 50.80 thereabouts. Not a lot of resistance within the ETF, and there is room, for some of these things to continue to work to the upside. So I still do like individual components, just maybe not today. Let's see what Facebook does on its earnings. So while it's kind of uneventful for the most part, from a sector point of view, we saw some pretty interesting things in the dollar. Finally breaking, we breached yesterday, sold off, and then when we took that out here today, we really closed very strong. That is a very bullish signal in my opinion, not so much specifically for I got to run out and buy up this stuff here tomorrow. That's not going to be what I do. But coming out of this range, I mean, it seems like the entire time I've been doing the market recap, I've said that. I know it's not true. I know for a little while we were trending up, but it's been a long time. I think that is a very strong signal, especially if we can hold up over these next couple of days. But I do think that is a strong signal. The dollar is certainly stronger than the other currencies right now for the most part. And I expect this to lead into more of a continuation of a trend as opposed to run in and buy, something for a new swing trade, tomorrow. So that's kind of how I'm thinking about it, more of a, going into the summer, maybe, the next little while, start to look for opportunities within this space. And as long as we're holding that breakout, I can't really fault anybody from a bullish point of view, even though I might not agree with exactly what they're doing. I wouldn't want to be bearish after that break. That, in my mind, was a pretty big breakout. So really interesting action over there. Kind of a blab bounce back and forth, not a whole lot happening day in gold. Maybe on a big breakout day, you would have expected gold to show a little more weakness, but it just continues to hang out, at just right below that old support level. Now, I still think the most likely thing is one of these days in the not too distant future, that gives out and we see some pretty good selling to the downside. And at least as long as we're below, closing below 1280, I'll continue to feel that way. We're starting to see that 9 getting a little bit closer to maybe push the issue a little bit, but it has, much like silver did, after it broke 15, it's played defense. It really has. And I think that you have to give it a little bit of credit. I still believe that we're more likely to be seeing gold down at the 1260, 1255, a month or a month and a half from now than not. But right now, certainly a little bit of back and forth, not really a lot of signals to make me think it has to happen tomorrow. Just the longer we're below here, I mean, it's who wants to buy here, and the more we fail, the more eventually I would assume somebody's going to give up. So I'm still looking for it. Still haven't seen it though. Still have not seen it, other than closing below that support level, which I do think you continue to call bearish. As long as we are doing that, haven't really seen any follow through, which is a little odd. On the other side of it, really had a decent bounce back day here on silver, which is really interesting. Going into the late part of the week or into early next week. Now, we're not out there, but we talked yesterday of working our way back to that trend line. If we can work our way back into this trend line, into this 9 EMA, falling 200, lining up almost with our downward trend line here as well, there could be a potential entry from a bearish point of view that I find interesting. We did work right into that 200 hourly here today. So I don't think it's quite here. I mean, I think for me at least, I need a little bit of doji type of day here tomorrow before I could get there. But the price is really interesting from a bearish perspective. And I expect if we see just a little bit of a boring day tomorrow, I expect tomorrow to actually like it from a bearish perspective. And I'm going to overall like it from a bearish perspective as long as we're below this $15 mark, below this trend line. Lots of resistance catalysts here for it. Just want to see it simmer down for 1 or 2 days in this zone, get a little bit of downward movement. I think that could actually be an interesting swing trading opportunity. Need one more day at the very least, and I might be getting greedy, but hey, I asked yesterday and we got to that price, so I'll keep rolling while I'm hot, I guess. So over in natural gas, we did see a little bit of a rally, and then we kind of sold off of the top. So I think we can call this a break. We've also kind of put together a little 2-day floor, with yesterday and today's low. So if we can take out these lows that have developed over the last couple of days, probably would be a little bit of a bearish signal. I think at this point you can say we're below 250 personally. I know that that's going to be up to each one of us. I know some of you probably said we were below 250 before I did. A little bit of downward movement I think would be good confirmation to the bearish side. And as long as we're below 250, I think you have to be looking at it bearish or just checking in and saying hello and see you tomorrow. That is not, we've looked at that support on many occasions, not something to be taken lightly in my mind. And lastly, over in crude, a little bit of a profit-taking type of day, not much, down 0.6%, nothing crazy or anything like that. Still have to like it, I think, from a bullish perspective. We did have that little bit of history at around $67. We talked before, really 65 can be that first level of support, the swing low, the 20-day moving average. So lots of potential catalysts if we want to pull back. But as we all know, a lot of, for the last little while, crude's been, pop, base, right? Sideways for a bit, pop, sideways for a bit, pop, sideways for a bit, pop, sideways for a bit, pop. So don't be surprised if we do a little bit of that again, right? Still above all the moving averages, a lot of things that act as support levels for us. Do think we can call this 63-ish a little bit of a swing support level if we need to or want to, but really anything above 63, as long as the signals are there, I think you can look at it from a bullish perspective. 65 would be the first level of support, though, in my mind. So not a lot of changing here today in crude, as it just continues to, it's been pretty well behaved, right? And that's always a nice thing. Crude's been very well behaved. The energy sector, as we look at the energy ETF and in the individual components too, not so much, right? So that's kind of how it has been. Jimbo, just coming back up real quick to your question, just go into the reports tab here on Tackle Trading, into the newsletter, and that is where you can find that scoreboard with the different sectors by ranking, my friend. That is where you can find that very quickly here, and then I'll let you guys get out of here. But just was talking with Johnny a little earlier today. I'm not sure if he was here. He probably had to work, but just talking a little bit of scanning. Just let's go take a quick look at an easy scan that we can run if we want to find something somewhere. I'm going to use the healthcare sector as the thing to be looking for today, because at least I think it's in a bearish retracement phase. So anytime you're doing any scanning, first thing you always want to do is build out your tradable universe, right? What do you need? I need something with over 1 million shares. That's important to me. I'm not interested in looking at things that don't have that. I need things that are both optionable and shortable, because I want to be able to do whatever it is I think I want to do, right? Do I have any price constraints? Generally, I am looking at the S&P 500 first, so I usually don't. But if I'm looking a little broader, I'll always go over $7 personally to work with that. So so no problem. It takes a little practice, Marcelo, no doubt, and maybe a little more room, right? So build it out. You may not agree. You may say that you need 2 million shares or whatever, but always start there. So whatever you run into, you can say, yeah, I would be interested in trading this, and I probably could if I wanted to. And then again, we've worked through the process, worked through the recap side of things, right? Where things are, where I think I should be looking going into tomorrow, right or wrong. I think I should be looking at the healthcare sector for some bearish opportunities developing late week or maybe early next week, depending how it goes. So I'm going to go right into my healthcare. I've always found it's easiest to scan if you get as specific as you can. Right, I'm interested in bearish plays in healthcare, right? Otherwise we end up having 30 pages of charts to go through, and that's a little intimidating for us. And so I'll always start here. You can either go into the basic if you want a little more information about who the company is that you're looking at, or you can go into charts, which is my preference, just to kind of see them 2 by 2, if you will. And I think one thing that maybe some traders make a mistake of, and maybe that's maybe not the right word, but I think sometimes when we're scanning, we spend a lot of time trying to make a trade on every little thing, right? As opposed to, let's kind of work through it quickly, see if it's interesting. Now here's J&J at a resistance level. I could be interested in this from a bullish breakout perspective, but not from a bearish retracement perspective, right? That's really not what it's doing, at least not to me. So I might be interested in it. I might add it to my list. Hey, if the healthcare sector does rally, does continue to recover, maybe a breakout on J&J could be a way I could maybe feel comfortable trading into that sector, right? Even though my bias leads to the downside. So we'll leave it at that. We've got a UNH. We can see, now we can't make a trade off of this, but we can see drop down, a little bit of a rally back up. We saw that. So we're going to come over to UNH in just a second here. We have Pfizer that just broke a support level. I don't really love this one though, and you might, and that's okay. So basically, I'm doing a quick view. So I want to look at UNH. I want to look at ABT here, who's rallied back up, and I'm going to look at ABBV here too, right? So first, just build that list. Hey, these are the guys I want to look at, right? Don't really think too terribly much about it. Let's go see if we can qualify them a little bit here. Let's start with UNH here. Next step, let's see if it actually looks as interesting as I thought that it did. Okay, here we go. So cheated a little bit on UNH, a little bit of a doji here at that old support level after recently breaking down. The next thing I'll do, I've already done it here on UNH, is I'll just do a very quick kind of guesstimate of what would my risk to reward ratio look like, right? Now I'm not being specific right now. That'll be the next step, right? I can get an idea though of, okay, well, if we do see some downward movement, that could be confirmation tomorrow from an aggressive point of view, Marcelo. If this does break today's low tomorrow, that would be, in my opinion, a perfectly legitimate way, albeit aggressive way, to go bearish. I probably wouldn't be that aggressive personally, but I know some traders who would be, and that would make sense. You know, it would make sense if they did that. Now, I'm not really there. Not yet, right? I would want to see another day with where it is here today. Now, if we have another little doji close, putting another higher low tomorrow, maybe we'll talk. But right now, I'd want to see it close. But I can just do a quick gauge here. Say, okay, well, this would give me, based off of about where I'd have my stop loss, I'd about want my stop loss above that breakout point, where about would be my target price. It would be back down here at about 210. I don't need to be too specific, right? I've got lots of trades to potentially go through. So I got an idea though of, okay, if this resistance, if this old support turns to resistance, I've got a doji, I see some downward movement, I have an idea of what the trade would look like. Now, maybe it's a huge red candle tomorrow and me waiting for one day completely blows it out of the water, right? That's okay, right? Won't be the first time, won't be the last time. We also had ABT, a very similar type of scenario, but I look at ABT and I say, well, while they are kind of in that retracement phase, I don't think this is nearly as bearish. I'm coming off of a long-term resistance level, right? If I turn this quickly to a weekly chart, this just looks like a pullback to a breakout point. This looks like something I should be buying, on a weekly perspective, to me at least, much more so than be selling. And I'm below the 50 and all of that stuff. And again, maybe I'm right, maybe I'm wrong, but I can just immediately look and say, yeah, just not there, right? Just not there. This is a major level of support. This thing breaks, but that's another trade altogether if that's the case. So yeah, I'm not interested. I'm not going to bet against ABT here personally. There's, in my mind, right or wrong, for better or worse, there's better things to be looking at. So let's move on. So yeah, nothing there. So again, we're trying to work through our list kind of, fast so we can then get specific on things that actually interest us, right? We have ABMD here. We got earnings right around the corner. So let's just pretend that's not an issue. Obviously it is. We're testing that old floor. This was an old breakdown point. I know many of us have been working with them or following them these last week and a half or so. Price is right, but not really a confirmation candle, but I like it. If I were to see a doji tomorrow, then I would probably really like this. Again, earnings, I have to pretend they're not there because that's not going to probably give us enough time for my tastes. But just to kind of go through the process, who was our other stock that we were supposed to be looking at? Oh, ABBV. There we go. I always like to have this. A stock that if a little bit of a break, where a little bit of above a support level, looked a little better, and you will see this a little bit. It looked like a little closer to a break on this little bird's eye chart, right? And when I look at it here today, I'm like, yeah, that's still a ways to go. That's for next week. That's if the sector can, really struggles and we break support. I like it, but just something that's not quite there for me, at least, just yet. So Amgen, though, very similar situation from a breakish perspective. We have, to ABMD, there we go, at an old resistance zone, can kind of get an idea. I've got some old support here. You can see, again, I've cheated. We've got some price history here around 170, 175. Got a nice little double bottom W pattern, not, back in the day here, but I can kind of get an idea of, I have to move this a little bit, of what the trade would kind of look like. So now I have a few candidates that I can go through, right? I know we kind of went through it quickly, but that's for this first step, that's how I want it to be. I don't want to spend 15 minutes evaluating 13, 14 different charts because we don't have the time. And if we do, well, there's other things to do, right, in life besides that. So now I've got a few things. I can go take a closer look at the ones that caught my eye, kind of brush aside the ones that don't, and hey, maybe I'll regret it. Maybe ABT is the bearish play of the week. It's going to have to be the bearish play of the week for somebody else, though, if that is the case. Now I can get a little bit more specific and say, yeah, would I get into this below today's low? How is my risk to reward? That's a lot of support there. That's probably needs to be my second target price. I probably am not comfortable trying to target it below that price point. So I'll go back to my UNH. I can go into a into a CI, say, you know what, maybe I like these guys a little bit better. So I hope, does that make sense, guys? Does that give you some ideas of at least how I like to scan? So bird's eye view, hey, that's interesting. Let's build that little list. Okay, now I've got that little list. I'll usually just make my own little folder for them. That's why you always see things where I have like 412 and 418 and stuff. That's what I will do there is I'll just hey, they caught my eye, throw them in there. Now I can kind of do a first pass. Yeah, I'm not touching that. That's no, I'd rather buy that than sell that, but I'm not touching it anyway. So, go through that, get a bird's eye view of what that risk to reward would look like. So I'm not getting really excited about a great entry. How many, we've all probably been guilty of that, right? Oh, that's a really good trade setup, really good entry. Oh, by the way, our risk to reward is 1.1 to 1, right? Oh, I'm not taking that trade. Or I try to convince myself to break my rules, even worse, right? So now I've got that list. I've narrowed it down once. I've narrowed it down twice. Now I can actually, okay, these are the handful of stocks going into later in the week. Maybe not specifically tomorrow, maybe specifically tomorrow, but going into later in the week, I'm looking at from a bearish perspective. And now it's just as much simple as, well, do I get what I want, right? Does UNH break that, close below today's low tomorrow? Does it go below and get a more aggressive trader in, right? So I hope that does give you some ideas as far as trading, looking for things that is concerned. Hey, I'm happy to hear that, Jimbo. Yeah, scanning is one of those things. Can be really helpful, but can be super time consuming if we're not careful with it. And I know we can all be as guilty as anybody else, where we spend 15 minutes looking at everything and then we don't really get anywhere unless once in a while we get lucky and the first thing we look at, oh, that's a great setup, right? But most of the time we have to comb through a little bit. Once you get them in the list, let's stay on top of them, right? They may or may not be ready to rock and roll tomorrow, but that doesn't mean they're not ready to rock and roll on Friday, right? Sometimes it takes a while. So, might be, we look at CI here, they could run up for a few more days, until we get into this old support zone, just shy of 160. And so that's okay. That would just give me a better risk to reward ratio potentially if it got there. So I do hope that gives you guys some ideas as you're doing your own scanning. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, that is going to do. I just use it on this trading view. You just come right into the long position, or to this button right here, Jimbo. You can do this in the scouting reports over on Tackle Trading too. That button will be there. So it's this one right here. Just hit the little next to it, my short position, my long position. So I'll just click short position here, and I'll just click right there. And then I can just kind of zip him down a little bit to about where I'd have him. Didn't do a very good job there because, as you guys know, I can't draw straight lines. There's a reason I had a couple already drawn before we did this, but I can get kind of an idea of where that would be. Yeah, do I need to be more specific in reality? Yes, absolutely. I want 10% of an ATR above that, or 50% of an ATR above that. I'll go find that real number if it makes it to that point, right? But for first glance, yeah, that gives me a pretty good idea of where things would be. So hopefully that answers that for you, Jimbo. Just this little button right here. You can just hit that little button there, long or short, depending on how what you're looking at, of course. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you, Marcel. I'm glad that was helpful for you, my friend. That is going to do it. They're just going to automatically pop up there, my friend. They're automatically going to pop up here. Just click the button. Let's go long. I want to buy it if it goes above this resistance, and I'll just right click there. Whoops, and I did it twice. Because again, you know that I can't draw lines, Jimbo. See how you are, and that will naturally place it in there, and then I can move them as I need to. Well, that would be my target. I mean, obviously, no, not there, but if we're having a conversation, back here, maybe, who knows? But yeah, that'll automatically pop up there for you on that TradingView software, if that's what you're using, Jimbo, where it'll automatically give you your red, my risk to reward, all of that fun stuff. So, all right, ladies and gentlemen. Well, as always, thank you so much for your time. It's always more fun to do this with you guys than on my own. So thanks for hanging in with me. We're going through the daily routine. As always, we got a bear market survival guide over on Tackle Trading for all of our bear market survival guide team members. So enjoy that this afternoon. As always, if you are new around here, be sure to subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell. And be sure to join us over at Tackle Trading on Twitter. You, of course, can find me at FrankMartin23 over on Twitter as well. I always do it here, Jimbo, on the Trading View. That's where I do my technical analysis personally. So might have to ask somebody more well versed in toss if that's available there. But you can always do it, right on here and get that idea. So I'm not sure exactly how you would do it over there, though. I like to do my technical analysis on this charting platform. So there you go. There you go. Yeah, make me draw lines. Ask me questions about software. That's a good way to make me look questionable at best, Jimbo. So, but such is life. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for your time. You guys have a fantastic Wednesday afternoon. I will see you probably in the halftime report, but if not, we'll definitely see you here tomorrow, same time and channel for the market recap. Hey, Thiago, good to see you, my friend. So get out of here, guys. Happy trading, and I will see you tomorrow. Bye, everybody.